Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, original link to the video, top of the description. My name's Connor if you're new. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's learn. I've seen quite a bit of videos on this topic, you know, American versus European cities, and I learn a lot from them, but I also end up having even more questions at the end. Fascinating subject. I did a preemptive sub, like, archive, original link, top description. Why European cities are insanely well designed. I think a big difference that I noticed in watching these videos is that it's between European and American cities. It's similar to the difference between building a house from scratch on a lot and renovating a pre-existing house, you know? And that's makes it even more strange that European cities are still better designed, seeing how American cities were made much more recently compared to European cities, and yet they still aren't as good. Again, this just gives me a whole bunch of other questions. Is it the fact that European cities are using a lot more pre-existing streets that were proven well throughout time for walking, and American cities just overlooked that? I don't know. Let's learn.
There are more than 10,000 Across the globe, there are more than 10,000 different cities that are all unique in their own way. While cities in the United States are dominated by cars, European cities are the polar opposite. This is because cities such as Paris are much older than American cities like New York, and the age difference has led to many interesting changes in the physical layout of each city. European cities are also known to have a lot of bike paths accessible throughout the city, something you rarely see in American ones. But besides the drastic comparisons between cities across the globe, why are American cities so different, and why didn't they follow the European blueprint for building a city? When taking a look at a city such as New York from satellite imagery, you see a lot of horizontal and vertical lines crossing between buildings and intersections. This is known as the grid plan, or the grid method. Now, the grid method was the founding framework for American cities, and besides New York, almost every city in America has adopted this design choice. By using the grid method, American cities were perfectly designed for both residential and commercial uses, since streets bordered buildings on each side. This can be visualized in a city like Los Angeles, where you can see the grid method being used for over 5 straight miles of streets. While this method of city planning was great for commercial and residential uses, European cities had a different approach to city planning. When you take a look at a city such as London from satellite imagery, you don't see many grids at all, and you—
Hold on. It makes me wonder about these streets. You know, why not just have perfectly straight? And it makes me think that these streets were probably the original roads before the city itself was really transformed into a grid structure. And again, that I think does well, and let me know if I'm wrong here, in explaining a big difference between European and American cities, is because Europe had an enormous amount of pre-existing roads. I don't know that this is the cause of it, guys. I'm just kind of throwing out things. That you had so many pre-existing roads instead of just a few, that they don't follow like a mass-produced pattern. Do you know what I'm trying to say there?
Great miles of streets. While this method of city planning was great for commercial and residential uses, European cities had a different approach to city planning. When you take a look at a city such as London from satellite imagery, you don't see many grids at all, and you might not even see any.
Maybe a few there, but even they aren't perfect grids.
In Europe, they did not use the grid method to build cities. They instead built radial-based cities. Now, it may seem that radial-based cities are the exact opposite from grid-based cities, but that's not exactly true. A radial-based city is based on a series of concentric circles that surround a traffic intersection. This can be seen all across Europe, in cities such as Paris and Denmark. The design dates back to ancient times, but is still very useful in today's cities. But again, this is something you rarely see in the United States, and there are many reasons behind this. For one, U.S. cities were designed for profitability, and the grid method—
Also, you see a lot of I'm going to go back, but a lot of roundabouts rather than intersections.
A radial.
And I think roundabouts just seem safer because a lot of the danger that comes with intersections, like square intersections or four-way intersections, is that sometimes people aren't paying attention and they'll just go full speed through. With a roundabout, you have no other option but to slow down, you know? You have to be like asleep, like passed out behind the wheel to really just go straight into it, you know? And I think that just seems safer to me. I don't have any stats to back it up. Just
Space city is space you rarely see in the United States, and there are many in today's cities. But again, this is something you rarely see in the United States, and there are many reasons behind this. For one, U.S. cities were designed for profitability, and the grid method allows as many homes and buildings to be placed in a certain location without wasting any space. It also means that the city will be designed for cars, and not for walking or biking. While this method has worked for hundreds of years, it shows how European cities are better designed for residential use over commercial uses. But this statement is not 100% true. While the cities are better designed for walking and bicycles, they still serve as a commercial use. Take this image of the Champs-Élysées, where there are large streets down the center and barely any intersections, something in contrast with New York City. Just by looking at these images, you can tell that the city was designed for walking, not cars. While there are roadways, walking was the priority when planning the city. Another key factor in
does that mean, guys, that if you're walking most of where you go, you want a European type layout, but if you are a company that wants the most efficient transportation of your product or a service, like any sort of business, you would always prefer the grid style? Or is there any business advantage for businesses in a more European designed city? Like, is it, I think you get what I'm asking, right?
In play is land use. Walking was the priority when planning the city. Another key factor in play is land use laws in U.S. and European cities. For example, agricultural subsidies in Europe have persuaded farmers to not sell their land to developers, and instead continue farming on it to prevent large development projects from taking shape. This can be seen in Paris, as there are still small farms that surround the city, but compared to New York, there are no farms in sight. Land use laws have played a big role in how cities have been built and developed all across the globe, and they are partially responsible for why cities are all designed in their own unique way. While cities are known for having large populations, cities are all
That's cool.
designed in their own unique way. While cities are known for having large populations, new studies have revealed that cities across the globe are facing a population decline. Today, more than 55% of the world's population lives in urban areas, and that number is expected to increase to 68% by 2050. Predictions show that people are leaving cities in hopes of living in more suburban areas. Now, this is being seen in American cities, and it's not necessarily because people are moving out, but just not moving in. European cities will be put to the test to see if they are closer to an urban environment due to their pedestrian-focused design. Since more of the world's population is looking to live in places with more open space and less congested areas, they may turn to European cities, where they were designed for residential uses over commercial uses. Throughout the next 20 to 30 years, we will see how cities across the globe react to more people wanting to live in the urban lifestyle. The grid plan will also be put to the test to see if it's a reliable method of city planning for decades into the future. The model of the European city has been around for hundreds of years, and many countries have used it as a blueprint for designing and planning their own cities. Although America was different and decided to create their own blueprint for a city, they showed the world how a city could be built catering towards both commercial and residential uses. But for now, American and European cities will always stay unique, and showed how two methods of city planning ended up changing the world. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe if you enjoyed the video.
Great video. So, again, the theme that I'm seeing is, I'm going to go back to the building on a vacant lot versus renovating a old pre-existing building, right? It's like the American way is, or the European way is, you're renovating a pre-existing old house to make it livable and make it really nice and look great and make it like a happy place to live, versus the American way, which is like you're building a efficient factory on a vacant lot. That's the difference in American and European city planning and city layout that I'm starting to notice, you know? And for example, I know Central Park is an outlier example, but let's take this for example. I think the American attitude towards, say, this lot right here is, I'll do European attitude first, is, well, this is pretty over here, let's add some nice things, but make it nice to live in, right? And the American attitude is, look at all of that space for potential economic production, and how can we fill as much in here as we possibly can, you know? And I also think another good analogy or comparison is, which is nothing new to me here, it's something I noticed in past videos, not necessarily from this channel, first time watching this channel, other city channels, videos, is it seems like European cities are more of a place that is convenient for walking, but you're also able to drive cars if you want. And the American way is, it is a city for driving and production, but you can walk if you want. And last thing I'll say is the historical aspect. Well, that's kind of what my example with the factory versus renovating a house. It's just, if you have, like, a lot of European cities grew for centuries, sometimes millennia, as mainly walking areas. You didn't have cars for 90% of it, or maybe 95% of it. And over time, the city is adapted over time to fit new uses, whereas America is much more just, boom, create the city for modern use, and this is how it turned out. So that's some of the main things I noticed with these videos. Great video. Love you all. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. If I said something that was wrong and I look confident, make sure to check me on that. And answering any of my questions, you guys are always awesome with that. Hopefully I'll see you guys next time. We'll keep learning. Bye.